Hey guys, this is George David with George David Investing. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Teladoc stock and why Teladoc is a very interesting opportunity at the right moment. And we're also going to be talking about whether that right moment is right now or coming up sometime in the near future. Now, there's some very interesting developments in the market as well today. The big news today is that inflation numbers came in at 4.2% instead of the expectation of 3.6%. That was a really large beat. And also, this is the largest inflation since we were in 2008. Now, don't forget, in 2008, that was the very top of the market. There was a lot of inflationary pressures, especially in regards to oil, that triggered that market collapse. That was that final nail in the head there that triggered that big financial crash in 2008. Now, we're going to dive into in today's video, not just with Teladoc stock and understanding the opportunity, the growth potential of the company, is we're going to take a look at the market as a whole, because some of those opportunities in terms of a potential dip or correction in the market, especially with this kind of news, we're already down 2% in the market today, is whether a recession could come out of that. And don't forget, also in the southeastern states, there's that oil glut happening with that hack. And that could send crude oil prices skyrocketing as well. Does that mean a recession or a dip is going to come in for a nice swoop for Teladoc stock? Because as you guys know, I'm a long-term investor, even though I do respect that there's some short-term plays. So as always, let's dive right into it. We're going to understand if we're going to have to bring out some vodka here to weather the storm about some ups and downs that are coming into the market as well. So without further ado, let's go right into understanding Teladoc stock. All right, so in this video, what we're going to cover is number one, Teladoc stock analysis and whether the company has some very strong growth potential going into the future. Number two, we're also going to be talking about that very interesting news in the market and the economy as a whole today. Number three, we're going to be talking about, is it time to buy, sell, or wait with Teladoc and other options as well in the market. And number four, we're also going to be talking about triggers for a stock market crash. So let's dive right into this. So currently, Teladoc does approximately just a little bit over a run rate of $1 billion a year in revenue. Now, Teladoc's maximum revenue potential, now there's other opportunities the company can do internationally. On a little bit more aggressive standpoint would be about $20 billion. I think a good respectable number when you forecast out about 10, 15, 20 years is about $15 to $20 billion, especially with domestic and international expansion and adoption. Now, don't forget, Teladoc is unique where people that don't have plans and don't have doctors or don't want to use their insurance because of high copays can use Teladoc services on a case-by-case basis. So this is one of the advantageous things where they can have a little bit of a barrier to entry against a competitor, maybe such as United Health Group that has something like this, but to a lesser extent. Now, with that in mind, that means that Teladoc has a growth potential of 1,900%. Now, when you take a look at Teladoc, that's a very strong growth potential into the future, 1,900%. Now, I don't give it an all-in because of the next factor that I'm going to talk about, but I do think Teladoc is a very strong, very good one of those. If you're drafting stocks, kind of like an NFL draft, maybe a top 5, top 7 kind of investment opportunity in this decade. So it definitely gets a good there for me. Now, another question is Teladoc a mass use stock? Well, the answer is no. And that's because not everyone's going to use it. There's going to be a lot of people out there, but it's kind of in the same boat as a Salesforce, right? It's something that a lot of people can use. There's definitely a market for there. There's a little bit of competition, but with Salesforce, unless you're a business professional, you're not going to be directly interacting with it. This is not a indignation of Teladoc. It just means that, it's not like an Amazon, it's not like a Microsoft where basically every single person, it's not like a Walmart where every single person basically could or would or has interacted with it or will be interacting with it. Not everyone's going to use Teladoc, but it doesn't necessarily preclude it from being a very strong opportunity. That's why I don't give it a rare all in, but it definitely gets a good for me because there is tremendous growth potential and there's a strong domestic and international component to it where it can continue to expand well into the future and well into this digital age of e-visits. Now, before I dive into some of the factors we got to look at timing, because there are some very interesting things at play that make Teladoc in the near term almost a good time to start buying. So I'm going to talk about that in just a second. If you like this video, go ahead and smash that like button for me. I really appreciate it. It helps me feel motivated and also helps push this content and grow this channel. And if you haven't subscribed already to the channel, I try to post a video every day, try to jam pack a lot of free value. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss another video. Now, moving ahead, let's talk about today's stock market news, how that relates to Teladoc stock and their opportunities, and also some things that we need to take a look at about if you have other securities out there, like like some of your investments, when that right time to strike is. Now, there's 5 big things. Usually, like you see, if you're following my videos, I don't take down some of the bigger factors. They kind of stay on. We kind of keep this around. So there's 2 big things that have changed recently. Number 1, this is the big one today, which is the inflation rate. Now, the inflation rate came in today, so the one that includes food and energy came in at 4.2%. Now, the expectation was 3.6%. That was a significant beat. It's actually one of the largest beats ever in recent memory, at least in the 2000s. So that was a significant beat. Now, there are some base effects in that, which means taking a look at starting from very low inflation during the COVID crash to here. So there are some base effects, but that was a large increase. And I'm going to talk about what that implies, whether there's a chance for a stock market correction or a recession. We're going to use that big R word there, or a stock market crash because of that. Along those lines, there's been a pipeline hack, very triggering in the southeastern portion of the country. I personally was driving and I saw some of the gas stations. One gas station had gas at $2.99. I can't believe it's $2.99. It was just $1.80 before. Give me a comment in the comment section if you're seeing something what I'm about to tell you. I saw $4.50. So this kind of reminds me of Hurricane Katrina levels. If you remember, Hurricane Katrina didn't in itself cause a recession, but it did take out a lot of those oil refineries just off the coast of Louisiana. So there was an oil supply glut and prices did skyrocket. I'm going to be talking about all of that in just a little bit. As always, we have the capital gains tax rate conundrum in combination of the corporate tax rate increases. I've touched upon those kind of factors, capital gains rates for some people, especially the wealthy 1% that aren't sheltered in IRAs. That's about 25% of those investments. They could go well over 50% in some of those states, such as California, New York, etc., Illinois. Corporate tax rates increasing as well. That's another thing to look out for. And the hidden story, but kind of really ties in with the pipeline hack, which is the Russia sanctions, Russia retaliation to the sanction that's coming in and how that affects oil. And as you know, if you follow the channel, I talk about just how big a factor oil is to basically the economic flows of the economy and how that can trigger stock market crashes and recessions. Now, moving ahead, okay, so let's talk about Teladoc stock, and there's some very other important things as well to look at. So this image right here, what we're seeing is the moving averages, the fundamental ones for Teladoc stock. As you can see, just a little bit after April 2021, where the green line goes below the red line at the very right part of the graph, we went into a death cross. Now, you want to see a golden cross happen after, but what I'm saying here is, look how much the price went down, and yet the company still has great growth potential as well. If you're a long-term investor, you're waiting right now, okay? You're waiting until that golden cross point hits, and it's going to hit pretty soon because this stock is being whacked to levels below the pre-pandemic area. This is now turning into value, especially with the sheer amount of growth opportunities. Just like I mentioned, 1900% growth opportunities. So wait, that moment is coming soon to get in at that right price, and man, you're going to do a freaking good job with that. Short term, don't do anything. There's too much variability in the stock. Basically, that means that we don't know if it really is going to go up and down. There's just too much variability at the moment, and it's not correlating precisely what the market is doing. Now, the next thing we need to do when we take a look at Teladoc stock investment opportunity is take a look at what the market as a whole is doing. Now, the market as a whole, I use the NASDAQ index because we're taking a look at growth stocks as your best investment opportunities, both in terms of stable growth opportunities and maximize your growth, minimize your risk if you do it at the right times and the right investment points. Well, the market right now is just going below the 50-day moving average with this huge precipitous drop because of the inflation fears. Now, this is why I always make sure you guys stay until the end of the video. I talk about all of how this all wraps up into a nice bow. But right now in the market, basically, if you have something out there, we're going through a little bit of a glut. No, inflation's not going to cause problems. Let's talk about oil, but there's going to be some things here in the short term. You know, short your tech stocks if you're a short-term investor. Get a nice gain of 1% or 2% just for fun. If you're looking to just have the thrill of the stock market chase. But right now, we're not doing anything in the market, and it should continue to go up. I'm going to talk about why I'm not concerned about the pipeline hack and the inflation numbers that are coming in and how that relates to Teladoc and why that golden opportunity is just poised for taking, okay, with Teladoc in the near future as well. So let's go ahead. And before I talk about this, obviously, as I always talk about, that's why you buy the golden cross point, because if you buy any just random dip, you can get slammed, as I show in this example here. If you buy that random dip at the top of the tech bubble just after February of 2000 and you sold at the death cross because all of a sudden you saw the market just going crazy, then you would have lost money. But if you bought at that golden cross point, sold at that death cross, if you had that kind of security that you wanted to not hold on to forever, then you would have made a nice cool 30-40% over the next year and a half. And I always just emphasize this because fundamentals are so important. You got to just stick to the fundamentals. And listen, it's all about quality of life. You're investing. You don't want to be actively investing and stressing out and graying your hair. Comment in the comment section if that's you. You're graying your hair just trying to survive that market volatility. I did a pretty funny TikTok video at George David Investing where I kind of like accentuate exactly that feeling everyone has once they're trying to time that perfect dip. It's just so much easier to go between golden cross point and the death cross point and just squeak out. You might not get that full game, but you'll get a very nice game. I don't think anyone's complaining with 30-40% taking that bubble and getting what it's worth out of it. Now, moving ahead, let's tie this all in. We always talk about this, triggers for a stock market crash. Number one, and this is not in order, but signs and triggers, spiking oil prices. This is oil prices going above 50-60% of the 2-year average. We're getting closer to that point. If for some reason the hack does that, which I'll talk about later, then yeah, there might be a little bit of a sign of concern. Spiking unemployment rates. If unemployment rates go above 0.6% of the base minimum of an economic cycle. Right now, remember previously I talked about unemployment went to 6.0%, went up to 6.1. That's only a 0.1% deviation. But if it went from 6.0 up to 6.6, then yeah, that's going to have ramifications that percolate to other aspects of the economy. That's going to start creating that pressure that's going to hit the top of the market, affect spending. That's going to cause an economic contraction. Spiking interest rates, more of an issue in the 70s and 80s with crazy policy from the Fed, but spiking interest rates could do that as well, greater than 6% there. Wildcard trigger, if there's some kind of pandemic lockdown from either a COVID variant that we don't have a treatment for or another kind of pandemic that comes out that's not COVID and we don't have a treatment for, obviously, as you remember, that creates a COVID lockdown. So without further ado, let's wrap this all up. Let's understand why Teladoc, and by the way, you guys, that's my dog. Sounds like an old man snoring, but you got to do what you got to do to percent. All right, let's wrap it all up and talk about this. Let's break it down. Number one, inflation rate. It was 4.2%. It significantly outpaced the 3.6%. That was a big dip. That was a big beat. The market has really took a big beating off of that. I think this is more to do with people just exacerbating the dip than it really is people fearing inflation. I'm not concerned about inflation rates. It's really a reflection of oil prices. If you remember during the pandemic, there were times that oil prices went negative, and a lot of the times that oil prices were in the 20s, 30s, $40 a barrel. It's going up a lot. So that's causing that base effect where inflation is going up a lot higher than it usually would from a different type of base. So I'm not worried about that unless for the second reason, there is a spike in oil prices. And the pipeline hack, it's a temporary issue. It should be resolved over the next couple days. It's also only really affecting a small quadrant of the United States, the southeastern United States. So unless it continues for a period of time and also affects more people, this shouldn't skyrocket crude prices. We would need crude prices at this moment to go up another 25% in the aggregate. We're talking about going from $60 to $100 a barrel, so about $68 to about $100 a barrel in total. For that to translate to the top of the market can't price this in. This would cause a chain reaction because it's an oil price shock. We're not there yet. This most likely won't happen because of that. And because of that, that's why Teladoc's a great opportunity once it hits the dip, because we shouldn't have a recession or a stock market crash coming anytime soon. Yes, capital gains tax rates are going to be going up, but it's going to be offset by the disposable income in the middle class. It's not going to really hurt investments. It's just in combination with that giant package that are coming down through Congress, the corporate tax rate increases. Those two things, once that's finally materialized, the market understands it, all the people understand it, that will cause a correction. Like I said, earnings will go down, capital gains rates will go up, people will get offset. That will cause a dip in the market of about 20%, but we will correct. So what I'm saying at the moment is Teladoc is in a death cross, and it's going to eventually, pretty shortly, go into a golden cross, which is your investment point to go in and ride that wave up. Right now, it's undervalued significantly, even below what it did before the value of what it did during the pandemic. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of growth. There's going to be a great timing. And no, I'm not worried about a crash coming in and you being able to get an even better opportunity. Now, what could possibly trigger the next economic crash? I don't believe it's housing markets. I got to do a little bit of due diligence and research to see if there's any kind of balloon mortgage payments that came out of just trying to stimulate the economy after COVID. I want to make sure I do my due diligence. I thought that's something that got eradicated. Let me know in the comments if there are balloon mortgages still out there, or if there's a new financial product like that. Because with all that stuff that's happening in the housing market, houses going about $1 million in Denver that are about 3,000 square feet, it's outrageous. And people don't necessarily financially budget for that properly. So there could be a housing bubble 2.0 if there are some of those aggressive, quote unquote, predatory lending standards. But what I'm looking for is a potential next stock market crash would definitely be spiking oil prices. And that would be my big thing at the moment. At the moment, I just see corrections coming up in the next 6 to 12 months once that package of corporate tax rate increase and capital gains rates get materialized. Don't worry about the pipeline hack, but if you guys do see oil prices happening, come back to my channel and I'll be talking about it more. So let's wrap it all up. Teladoc, you got the green light. The opportunity is going to be coming up soon. It's going to be a really good one. All right, guys, that's all I have with this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll have a new one shortly.